The morning sun rose gently over Maplewood, a quiet suburban neighborhood in the United States, spilling golden light over the rows of tidy houses and freshly mown lawns. Birds chirped energetically, greeting the new day, while the occasional sound of a car door closing punctuated the calm. On one of these streets, 3-year-old Emily played in her front yard, completely absorbed in her own little world. Clutching her stuffed rabbit, she ran back and forth, giggling as she tossed it into the air and caught it again. Each bounce and tumble sent bursts of laughter rippling through the morning air, the sound carrying lightly across the street. Emily's mother, Sarah, leaned against the doorway of their small sunlit porch, sipping her morning coffee while keeping a careful eye on her daughter. She felt a mix of amusement and vigilance. Emily was endlessly curious and had a knack for wandering just a little too far, so she stayed nearby, ready to intervene if necessary. At that moment, Sarah felt a light breeze on her face and noticed the subtle hum of activity from a block down, a sound that seemed slightly out of place in the normally quiet street. At first, she paid it no mind, assuming it was just a delivery truck or a neighbor leaving for work. But there was something different today, an unusual presence that seemed to make the air feel heavier, almost expectant. Emily, oblivious to anything beyond her play, paused and cocked her head toward the distant noise. A series of bright flashes reflected off the road, dancing in the early morning sunlight. Curious, she squinted her little blue eyes, following the source of the shimmering light. Her mother, sensing Emily's attention had shifted, turned just in time to see a figure walking down the street, a police officer. His uniform crisp, and at his side, a large dog moving with purpose and grace. The dog's coat gleamed in the sunlight, its muscles rippling under the training that had made it one of the most skilled canine officers in the county. Emily's tiny legs carried her closer, moving instinctively toward the dog, despite the nervous flutter in her chest. She had always loved animals, feeling a strange sense of comfort in their presence. This one, however, was different. It was massive compared to her small frame, with alert eyes that seemed almost human in their intelligence. Its ears perked up at every sound, and its tail swished cautiously, a signal that it was fully aware of its surroundings. Emily paused a few feet away, unsure whether to approach or retreat. The officer noticed her hesitation and smiled warmly, crouching to appear less intimidating. "Hey there, little one," he said softly. "This is Max, my partner. He's very friendly." Max, the K9, tilted his head and sniffed the air near Emily. He sensed her innocence and curiosity, and responded with a gentle wag of his tail. Emily's eyes widened in delight, and she stepped forward, reaching out a tentative hand. Max's warm nose nudged against her palm, eliciting a small squeal of surprise, and then laughter. The officer chuckled, adjusting his grip on Max's leash. He knew the dog had a keen sense of danger, and a remarkable ability to protect those around him. But right now, all he wanted was to let the little girl feel safe and happy in his presence. Sarah, watching closely, felt a mixture of relief and caution. Emily had always been fearless in her curiosity, but the sight of the police officer and his imposing dog caused a twinge of anxiety. She took a step forward, calling softly, "Emily, be careful." But Emily, enchanted by the dog, barely noticed her mother's words. The dog's calm demeanor reassured her, and she giggled as Max playfully pawed at her toy rabbit. At that moment, the street seemed suspended in time, a perfect, peaceful morning filled with laughter, sunlight, and the gentle presence of a guardian she had never met before. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, Sarah noticed a shift in the atmosphere. A man standing near a parked car on the corner caught her eye. He wasn't doing anything overtly threatening, but his gaze lingered too long, and the way he shifted his weight made Sarah's instincts scream a warning. Her heart skipped a beat, and she instinctively moved closer to Emily. Meanwhile, Max's ears twitched, and he stiffened slightly. The officer noticed the subtle change immediately, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the street. Max growled softly a low, almost imperceptible warning, but it carried an edge of authority that no passerby could ignore if they paid attention. Emily, oblivious to the tension building around her, reached out again to stroke Max's fur. The dog leaned into her touch, his tail wagging once more, masking the alertness that had suddenly taken hold beneath the surface. Emily's laughter mingled with the soft morning breeze, creating an almost surreal contrast to the silent undercurrent of danger that had begun to seep into the quiet neighborhood. Sarah's heart pounded as she weighed her options. Should she call Emily back or trust the officer and his trained canine to handle whatever was unfolding? Suddenly, the man moved. He stepped away from the car and began walking toward the direction of Emily's house, slow at first, then faster. Max's stance changed instantly. His body tensed, muscles coiling like springs. The playful wag of his tail stopped abruptly, replaced by a rigid line, ears upright, eyes locked on the approaching figure. The officer immediately noticed the shift, his hand tightening on the leash. He spoke to Max in low, precise commands, which the dog responded to without hesitation. Emily, noticing Max's sudden seriousness, took a cautious step back, her playful innocence clashing with a growing sense of unease she didn't fully understand. Sarah stepped forward, gathering Emily in her arms, her eyes never leaving the man. "Who is that?" she whispered to herself, her voice trembling slightly. The officer didn't answer immediately. He simply positioned himself closer to Emily and Sarah, creating a barrier with Max between the family and the approaching stranger. Max let out a deep, commanding bark, the sound sharp and authoritative, echoing down the otherwise quiet street. The man hesitated, glancing at the dog, and then, realizing he was being confronted, froze for a moment. That pause, brief as it was, felt like an eternity to Sarah. Emily clung to her mother, still wide-eyed, as the invisible tension of the morning settled around them like a storm ready to break. In that suspended moment, everything in the street seemed amplified. The rustling of leaves, the distant chirping of birds, even the quiet hum of the neighbor's car engine became significant. Every eye, every movement was scrutinized. Max, trained for situations just like this, stepped closer to the officer, positioning himself between the threat and the child. The officer whispered a few commands, calm but firm, and Max responded with precise movements, blocking the man's path. Emily, feeling a strange mixture of fear and fascination, watched the dog act with intelligence and bravery far beyond her comprehension. The tension was palpable, yet Max's presence brought a sense of safety. Emily's mother exhaled slowly, realizing that the child, the dog, and the officer were now a unit in a small battle of instinct and courage. The quiet morning that had begun with laughter and sunlight had transformed into a scene of vigilance, awareness, and silent heroism. Little did anyone know, the events unfolding in that suburban street would become a story talked about for weeks. A story of courage, protection, and the remarkable bond between a little girl and a police dog whose instincts were about to save the day. Emily clutched her stuffed rabbit tightly, still perched in her mother's arms, her small fingers pressing into the soft fabric as if it could shield her from the tension around them. Yet her curiosity was stronger than fear. She craned her neck toward Max, the police canine, and her bright blue eyes met his steady gaze. There was something about the dog, his calm confidence, his watchful eyes, that seemed to bridge the gap between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Emily had always loved animals, but she had never seen one like this. This was not a playful pet. This was a guardian, intelligent and alert, a creature who seemed to understand more than she could comprehend. Sarah held Emily close, feeling a mixture of relief and concern. The officer, recognizing the tension in the mother and child, crouched slightly, lowering himself to their level. "Don't worry," he said gently, his voice calm and reassuring. "Max is trained for situations like this. You're safe." Max, sensing the officer's confidence, stood still but alert, his ears pivoting to catch even the slightest sound. Emily's curiosity overcame her apprehension. She leaned slightly forward, her hand reaching out once more to touch Max's soft coat. The dog sniffed her tiny hand carefully and let her stroke him, wagging his tail slightly. To Emily, this was enchanting. She giggled, a sound bright and musical, momentarily breaking through the tension of the morning. While Emily explored her fascination with Max, Sarah's eyes scanned the street. The man near the parked car remained there, watching. His movements were subtle, almost casual, but there was an undercurrent of intent that Sarah's instincts immediately recognized. She tightened her hold on Emily and whispered, "Sweetie, stay close to Mommy." Emily nodded, though her attention flickered constantly between the dog and the approaching figure. She had a natural curiosity, an insatiable desire to understand the world around her. But in that moment, innocence met instinct, and the tension of the situation began to crystallize in ways a child could feel but not articulate. The officer noticed the man's lingering gaze and a slight twitch of his fingers near his jacket pocket. Instantly, he adjusted Max's stance. "Watch him," the officer murmured softly to the dog. Max stiffened further, the playful demeanor disappearing as his training kicked in. Every muscle in the dog's body was now coiled, ready to respond to any threat. Emily, sensing the shift in the dog's behavior, pulled back slightly, a subtle unease creeping into her otherwise cheerful demeanor. Yet her fascination with Max remained. She had never seen a dog act with such awareness and purpose. To her, it was almost magical, a silent protector that seemed to read the world differently from humans. Neighbors, noticing the interaction, peeked from windows and doorways, intrigued by the scene unfolding. A quiet suburb, usually calm and uneventful, now held a sense of anticipation that seemed to ripple through every street and yard. Some whispered to one another about the police presence, while others speculated about what had caused Max's sudden alertness. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility even more keenly. She had to keep Emily safe, but she also had to trust that the officer and his canine partner were prepared for whatever might happen next. She took a deep breath, silently hoping the situation would resolve without incident. Emily, despite the subtle tension, edged closer again to Max. She stroked his ears and felt the warmth radiating from his powerful body. The dog let out a low, reassuring sound, almost as if acknowledging her bravery and curiosity. Emily's fascination was evident, her small face lit with awe. She had never encountered anything like Max before, and her mind tried to reconcile the calm presence of the dog with the unease she could sense around him. The K9 had become, in that moment, a figure of wonder and security, a guardian in a world that suddenly seemed larger and more complex than her tiny 3-year-old self could fully grasp. Suddenly, the man near the car took a small, deliberate step forward. Emily's mother tensed instinctively, pulling her daughter a little closer. Max's body language changed instantly. The playful curiosity of moments ago vanished completely, replaced by the rigid focus of a trained protector. The dog's ears perked sharply, tail rigid, and a low growl emanated from deep in his throat, a warning both subtle and chilling. The officer responded immediately, his own stance shifting as he assessed the man's movements. "Stay behind me," he instructed Sarah quietly, keeping Emily close and shielded. Emily's mind was a swirl of fascination and confusion. She had never witnessed such intensity, and though a part of her wanted to run back to the safety of her porch, another part was drawn to Max's calm bravery. She could feel the connection between the officer and the dog, a silent communication that told her she was protected. The man hesitated, clearly unsettled by Max's warning signals. Something about the dog's unwavering focus made him pause, the intention in his eyes faltering. Emily's mother exhaled slowly, feeling a glimmer of hope, yet still bracing for the unknown. Then, unexpectedly, Emily's curiosity got the better of her again. "Can I pet him?" she asked softly, her voice almost lost beneath the tension. The officer glanced down at her, considering the question. He saw the awe and innocence in her eyes, and gave a small nod. "Careful," he said. "But yes, you can." Emily's tiny fingers reached out once more, brushing Max's coarse fur. The dog leaned into her touch, a gentle reassurance amidst the tension. It was a moment of calm within the storm, a reminder that even in moments of danger, innocence and wonder could still exist. The man, realizing he could not approach without consequence, shifted again, this time moving away from Emily's house. Max's growl deepened, a signal that the dog was ready to act if necessary. Emily, fascinated and emboldened, laughed quietly, oblivious to the threat she had narrowly avoided. Her mother tightened her hold slightly, whispering reassurances into her daughter's ear. The officer adjusted his stance, keeping one hand on Max's leash and the other ready to respond. The street, for all its suburban normalcy, had transformed into a stage where instinct, training, and courage were silently playing out a life-saving drama. Emily's attention returned fully to Max. She marveled at his size, his alertness, and the quiet confidence that radiated from him. She whispered to him, as if sharing a secret, "You're my hero, Max." The dog responded with a gentle nuzzle, a silent acknowledgement of her trust. At that moment, Emily had formed a connection she would never forget. It was more than fascination. It was awe and gratitude intertwined, the beginning of a bond forged in a moment of quiet tension and heroic readiness. Sarah, watching her daughter, felt a mixture of relief, pride, and lingering concern. She knew that this encounter, though brief, had left an impression on Emily that would last a lifetime. The officer's calm demeanor and Max's trained instinct had prevented a potential disaster. Even as Emily learned her first real lesson about courage, trust, and the protective power of a loyal companion, the neighborhood, still holding its collective breath, slowly began to resume its quiet rhythm. But for Emily, the morning had transformed into something unforgettable, a moment where innocence met heroism and curiosity met bravery. The quiet suburban street of Maplewood, which had seemed so safe just moments ago, now felt tense with anticipation. Emily, still in her mother's arms, clutched her stuffed rabbit tightly, her wide blue eyes darting between the approaching man and Max. The police canine. The dog's body was taut, every muscle coiled like a spring, as if he could pounce at the slightest sign of danger. Emily's mother, Sarah, held her daughter close, whispering soothing words. But even she could feel the underlying threat, a prickling sensation that traveled down her spine. The man took another step forward, his movements deliberate, his eyes fixed on Emily's house. Sarah's heart pounded, a rapid rhythm of fear and protectiveness. She instinctively shifted her stance, positioning herself between her daughter and the stranger, while the officer silently mirrored her movements, creating a protective barrier. Max growled low and steady, the warning deep in his chest, vibrating through the air. Emily, sensing the tension, instinctively pressed herself closer to her mother, still fascinated by the dog's unwavering focus. The officer's eyes locked on the man, scanning his posture, his hands, and his subtle cues. Every movement was critical in this delicate moment. He whispered commands to Max, and the dog responded instantly, shifting slightly to block any potential path the man might take. Max's instincts, honed through rigorous training, allowed him to read the man's intentions before words or actions could reveal them. Emily, unaware of the full danger, watched the dog with wide-eyed fascination. To her, Max was more than just a protector. He was a hero, a guardian capable of extraordinary things. The man, noticing Max's unwavering attention and the officer's controlled stance, hesitated. His steps faltered, the casual ease he had tried to maintain replaced with visible uncertainty. Max's eyes locked on him, unwavering, and his growl grew slightly louder, a warning that this was no ordinary dog, and this was no ordinary encounter. Emily, still clutching her toy, tilted her head in curiosity, sensing the tension, but not fully understanding it. Her gaze flicked from the man to Max, then to her mother, and back again, the puzzle pieces of the moment slowly clicking together in her young mind. Suddenly, the man shifted his weight, and Sarah realized he might try to approach. Panic surged through her. "Emily, stay behind me," she hissed, tightening her hold on her daughter. Max responded instantly to the change in posture, pulling slightly on the leash, alerting the officer. Every sense the dog possessed was now fully engaged. He was no longer playful or curious. He was a living shield, poised to act in an instant. Emily, sensing the dog's serious demeanor, took a small step back, but didn't move far from the officer's side, the fascination in her eyes tempered by a spark of fear. The officer's voice was calm, but firm. "Stay behind me." "Max, watch him." The commands were precise, practiced, and Max obeyed without hesitation. The man, now fully aware that he was being confronted by both human and canine, froze. For a moment, the street was eerily still, a tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Emily's mother exhaled slowly, her body trembling slightly as she tried to steady her breathing. The man's intentions remained unclear, but the danger was palpable. Max's low growl echoed once more, reverberating through the morning air, a silent proclamation that no harm would come to the little girl. Then, without warning, the man made a sudden move. He started to step sideways, perhaps attempting to circle around them or reach Emily's yard. Max reacted instantly. He lunged forward on the leash, barking loudly and powerfully. The sound was sharp, commanding, and unmistakably authoritative. Emily squealed, half in fright and half in awe, as the dog's agility and speed became immediately apparent. The officer tightened his grip, keeping Max close, but ready to act. The man's eyes widened, clearly unprepared for the level of skill and alertness displayed by the K9. Emily's curiosity battled with her fear. She had never seen anything like this before. Max was no ordinary dog. His strength, intelligence, and precision were astonishing. Yet, even in the midst of this potentially dangerous situation, Emily felt a sense of awe. She reached out tentatively toward Max, who leaned slightly into her hand, a gentle reassurance amid the chaos. The juxtaposition of her innocence against the intensity of the moment was striking. Emily's mother felt a surge of gratitude for the officer and his partner. They were professional, calm, and completely in control, yet still allowing a small child to witness bravery firsthand. The man, realizing he could not approach without consequence, hesitated again. His eyes flicked nervously between Emily, Sarah, and Max. The tension stretched painfully, each second feeling longer than the last. The officer's focus never wavered. He subtly adjusted Max's position, placing the dog between the man and the family, effectively creating a barrier that communicated a clear, non-verbal warning. Max growled again, a deep rumble that seemed to resonate through the street, making it unmistakably clear that any further movement by the stranger would not go unnoticed. Emily, still curious and wide-eyed, whispered to the dog, "You're so brave, Max." The dog's ears flicked in acknowledgement, and he stayed alert, his tail rigid, ready to protect. Sarah hugged Emily tightly, feeling both fear and awe. The officer took a cautious step forward, his voice calm but commanding. "Sir, stop right there." The man froze, clearly realizing he was cornered, not just by the officer, but by the K-9's unwavering presence. The quiet street of Maplewood, usually safe and uneventful, had transformed into a stage for courage, instincts, and a silent showdown between predator and protector. Suddenly, the man made a desperate decision. He turned and bolted down the street, attempting to escape. Max, trained for these exact moments, reacted instantly. The dog lunged forward, expertly maneuvering obstacles with precision and speed, chasing the fleeing man. Emily gasped, eyes wide with shock and excitement. Her mother held her close, heart pounding, as the officer called for backup over his radio. The street, once calm and sunny, erupted into controlled chaos as the K-9 demonstrated the agility and bravery that training and instinct had forged. Emily, watching Max in action, felt a mix of fear and admiration. She could hardly believe her eyes. The dog's movements were flawless, every step calculated, every action purposeful. The officer moved alongside, ensuring Emily's safety while coordinating with the other responding officers. Sarah whispered reassurances into Emily's ear, trying to soothe her daughter's rapid heartbeat. Yet Emily couldn't take her eyes off the dog. To her, Max was no longer just a K-9 officer. He was a hero, acting with courage and intelligence that seemed almost magical to a 3-year-old mind. Within moments, the man was cornered by additional officers, the threat neutralized without harm to anyone. Max, panting slightly but still alert, returned to the officer's side. Emily ran forward, wide-eyed and trembling, her fascination now mixed with relief. She reached out to Max, who nuzzled her gently, acknowledging her presence and bravery in staying calm. Sarah hugged her daughter, grateful beyond words. The quiet neighborhood exhaled collectively, relief washing over the residents who had witnessed a brush with danger and the incredible display of courage that had kept everyone safe. In that morning of chaos, Emily had learned a lesson she would never forget. Bravery comes in many forms, and sometimes protection comes from the most unexpected sources. Max, the K-9, had acted instinctively, courageously, and effectively, ensuring the safety of a small child and her mother. Emily's fascination with animals had transformed into respect and admiration for the heroism she had witnessed firsthand. The quiet suburban street of Maplewood had seen danger, suspense, and ultimate triumph, all witnessed by a small child who would carry the memory for the rest of her life. The quiet street of Maplewood, once bathed in golden morning light, now vibrated with tension, every neighbor holding their breath as the drama unfolded. The man who had loitered near Emily's home bolted down the street, desperation written across his face. Max, the police K-9, reacted instantly. His powerful muscles rippled as he sprang into action, every motion precise, honed by countless hours of rigorous training. The officer at his side moved fluidly, coordinating with backup officers who had arrived silently but efficiently, ensuring Emily and her mother remained safe. Emily's mother, Sarah, held her daughter tightly, pressing her small body close against her own. Emily's heart pounded in rhythm with the excitement and fear that radiated from every movement around her. She had watched Max's instinctive response, and even in her young mind, she understood that the dog was extraordinary. Max wasn't just chasing the man, he was asserting control over a potentially dangerous situation, using intelligence, agility, and courage to protect the most vulnerable. The man zigzagged through parked cars, trying to lose Max and evade the officers. But the dog's training was impeccable. He anticipated every movement, his nose sniffing the air, body low and agile, navigating obstacles with astonishing speed. Emily gasped as she watched Max leap over a low fence, dodge a trash can, and pivot with the grace of a seasoned athlete. Each motion exuded power, precision, and focus. To Emily, the dog was almost mythical, a living, breathing hero who had appeared in her ordinary world and transformed it into something extraordinary. The officer's voice rang out in calm but commanding tones, coordinating with Max and his fellow officers. "Corner him near the end of the block. Max, keep him in sight." Max responded instantly, barking sharply to assert presence and keep the man from running recklessly into danger. Emily, still clutching her stuffed rabbit, watched the unfolding scene with wide eyes. She could hardly comprehend the scale of the action, but she understood one thing clearly. Max was protecting her. That realization sent a mixture of awe, trust, and relief through her tiny body. The suspect, realizing he was being pursued by both human and canine, made a sudden turn, attempting to climb over a short wall. Max anticipated the move instantly. With a fluid leap, the dog landed precisely behind the man, blocking his escape path. Emily's mother gasped, unsure whether to marvel or be frightened. The man froze, eyes widening as the dog's low, commanding growl reverberated through the quiet street. Max's focus was unbreakable. Every instinct, every command he had been trained to obey, merged seamlessly with his natural protective tendencies. He had become more than a dog in that moment. He was a force of justice, a guardian capable of altering the outcome of a dangerous encounter with remarkable efficiency. Emily, fascinated despite her fear, whispered softly to herself, "You're amazing, Max." The dog, momentarily glancing at her, gave a gentle nuzzle, as if acknowledging her presence and trust. Sarah held her daughter closer, whispering reassurances, but even she couldn't hide the awe that surged through her. This was not merely a chase, it was a demonstration of instinct, intelligence, and courage manifest in a single creature, and it was happening right before their eyes. The man, realizing resistance was futile, stumbled as officers approached from both sides, cutting off any remaining escape routes. Max's growl softened into a more controlled warning, keeping the man aware that further movement could provoke a more forceful response. Emily watched, eyes wide, as the officers calmly but efficiently restrained the man, cuffing him and ensuring he could no longer pose a threat. The culmination of human training, teamwork, and canine instinct had neutralized the danger without anyone being harmed. Emily's amazement shifted into admiration. She stepped closer to Max under her mother's watchful eye and whispered again, "You're my hero." Max responded with a gentle nuzzle, allowing her small hands to stroke his coarse fur. The officer chuckled softly, watching the bond between child and dog deepen. He had seen it countless times before, children instinctively drawn to canine officers after witnessing their heroism. But the look in Emily's eyes was something special, a mixture of awe, respect, and gratitude that could only come from a first-hand experience of bravery in action. Neighbors began to emerge from their homes, drawn by the commotion. They had seen the suspect flee, witnessed Max's pursuit, and now watched as the situation was resolved. Whispers of admiration spread quickly. "Did you see that dog? Incredible!" one neighbor exclaimed. "I've never seen anything like it," another added. Sarah, holding Emily, felt a profound sense of gratitude toward the officer and his partner. Max's actions had protected her daughter, turned a potentially terrifying situation into a safe one, and demonstrated courage in a way words alone could never capture. Emily, still absorbing everything, knelt slightly to meet Max at eye level. She patted his strong back, giggling nervously. "You saved me," she whispered. Max, calm and alert, allowed the gentle interaction, his presence a reassuring reminder that danger had been averted. The officer approached, smiling at the scene. "He's a good dog, isn't he?" he asked softly. Emily nodded vigorously, eyes wide. "The best," she replied, her small voice filled with sincerity. In that moment, the bond between child and canine solidified, a connection born not from play or casual interaction, but but from shared experience in the midst of real-life heroism. Once the suspect was secured, the officer returned to Emily and her mother, crouching down to speak at eye level. "You're safe now," he said gently, his voice calm but reassuring. Emily beamed up at him, her fear replaced by admiration and trust. Max wagged his tail slightly, the tension of the chase giving way to calm vigilance. Sarah exhaled, relief washing over her. The morning had begun as a simple, sunny day of play and curiosity, yet it had transformed into an unforgettable lesson in courage, protection, and instinct. Emily's mind replayed the events over and over. Max had leapt, dodged, and chased with perfect precision. The officer had coordinated every move, ensuring no harm came to anyone. And through it all, Emily had remained in a safe bubble, able to witness heroism firsthand. The street slowly returned to normal, though the excitement lingered in the air like static. Emily's fascination with the dog deepened into genuine respect, and her mother's gratitude toward the officer, and Max grew with every passing second. Neighbors emerged fully from their homes, applauding quietly, impressed by the canine's skill and the officer's calm professionalism. Children who had been playing nearby stared in wide-eyed wonder, and even adults exchanged astonished glances. Maplewood had seen danger, and it had also seen heroism, bravery, and the incredible instincts of a trained police dog. Emily, standing with her mother now, looked up at Max and whispered again, "Thank you for keeping me safe." The dog responded with a gentle nuzzle, sealing the memory in the young girl's heart forever. As the morning continued, Emily, Sarah, and the officer walked slowly back toward their home. Max trotted alongside, still alert but calm, his body relaxed now that the immediate danger had passed. Emily's mother hugged her daughter tightly, whispering reassurances and gratitude, while Emily reached out repeatedly to pet Max, her fascination undimmed. In that small suburban street, a simple morning had transformed into an extraordinary story of courage, instinct, and the bond between human and canine. Emily had witnessed bravery firsthand, and it had left an imprint she would carry forever. The quiet suburban street of Maplewood slowly began to breathe again. The tension that had gripped every neighbor, every passerby, and every resident was easing, replaced by a cautious sense of relief. The suspect, cornered and now firmly in the custody of the responding officers, had no chance to continue the threat. Max, the police canine, remained at the officer's side, alert but calm, his instincts still humming beneath the surface like a finely tuned instrument. His eyes scanned the surroundings, ensuring that no hidden danger lingered. Emily, still in her mother's arms, could barely comprehend what had just happened. Her wide eyes reflected a mixture of awe, excitement, and lingering fear. Sarah clutched her daughter tightly, holding her close as if to shield her from the memory of the threat. Emily, however, had only eyes for Max. "You did it, Max," she whispered, her small voice trembling with emotion. The dog, sensing the shift from chaos to calm, allowed Emily to stroke his powerful back, his tail giving a gentle wag, as if acknowledging her gratitude. The officer smiled, observing the interaction, knowing that the bond forming between the child and his canine partner was unique. Emily had witnessed heroism firsthand, and that impression would remain etched in her memory forever. The neighbors, who had cautiously emerged from their homes to witness the aftermath, whispered to one another in amazement. "Did you see that dog? Incredible," one murmured. "I've never seen anything like it," another said. Children from nearby houses, drawn by the commotion, watched with wide eyes, imagining themselves in Emily's place. The officers calmly ensured the street was secure, communicating quietly over radios to confirm that the situation was fully under control. For all who witnessed it, the morning had transformed from ordinary suburban calm to a demonstration of courage, skill, and instinct, an event that would not soon be forgotten. Emily's fascination with Max only grew as she observed the dog in action. She leaned forward slightly, still in her mother's arms, and whispered, "You're my hero, Max." The dog responded with a gentle nuzzle, his warmth and strength reassuring her that she was safe. Sarah, watching her daughter's admiration and relief, felt a profound sense of gratitude. In that moment, the morning's events crystallized into something more than just a fleeting encounter. It became a vivid lesson in bravery, trust, and the protective bond between human and animal. The officer crouched slightly to Emily's level, his expression calm and kind. "You're safe now," he said gently. Max did exactly what he was trained to do. "You stayed calm and brave, and that's very important." Emily nodded solemnly, her young mind still processing the morning's whirlwind of events. Max wagged his tail slightly, sensing the officer's reassurance and a shift in mood. The bond between child and canine was now undeniable. Emily's small hands stroked the dog's fur once more, a gesture of gratitude and fascination they felt instinctively natural. Sarah finally relaxed her grip slightly, feeling the weight of tension begin to lift. She whispered softly into Emily's ear, "See? Everything's okay now. You're safe." Emily smiled faintly, still awestruck, her tiny fingers clutching Max's fur as if drawing strength from his presence. The officer checked the perimeter one last time, ensuring that the suspect had no means to cause further harm. Max, his body relaxed but his instincts still alert, stayed close, his presence a silent promise of protection. The neighborhood, now emerging fully from the morning's suspense, began to hum with quiet conversations. Residents peeked from windows and doorways, sharing stories of what they had witnessed. The children, inspired and wide-eyed, whispered among themselves, recounting the bravery of Max and the calm professionalism of the officers. For Emily, however, the world had narrowed to two things: her mother, safely holding her, and Max, the dog who had protected her in a way she would never forget. The morning's extraordinary events had transformed into a moment of connection, trust, and admiration. Emily's mother, Sarah, finally allowed her daughter to step down, holding her hands tightly as she walked toward Max under the officer's watchful eye. Emily knelt slightly, placing her small hands on the dog's back, feeling the warmth and strength that radiated from him. "Thank you," she whispered again, her voice a mixture of relief and wonder. Max leaned slightly into her touch, his gentle nuzzle reaffirming the bond forming between them. The officer smiled, recognizing the significance of the moment. For a child, witnessing courage and heroism firsthand was rare, and for Emily, it had been transformative. The officer began to explain, in gentle terms suitable for a 3-year-old, how Max had acted. "He followed my commands, kept the area safe, and made sure you weren't in danger," he said. Emily listened intently, her fascination growing with every word. She reached out again to stroke Max's fur, giggling softly as the dog allowed her affection. Sarah felt a deep sense of relief and pride, knowing that her daughter had remained calm and safe, and that Max had performed his duty flawlessly. The morning's tension had finally given way to safety, trust, and admiration. The suspect, now securely in custody, was escorted by additional officers to waiting vehicles. Max remained alert, his eyes scanning the street for any remaining signs of danger, though none appeared. Emily, now standing beside her mother, watched the proceedings with wide eyes. "He won't hurt us anymore," she whispered, more to reassure herself than anyone else. The officer nodded, keeping a calm watch while Max's presence continued to provide a sense of security. The neighborhood, which had been gripped by suspense and fear, was slowly returning to its peaceful rhythm. Yet the morning's events had left an indelible impression on everyone who witnessed them. Emily's fascination with Max had transformed into deep admiration. She continued to pet him gently, whispering words of thanks and awe. The officer spoke briefly to Sarah, explaining Max's training and the incredible instincts that allowed him to act decisively. Sarah listened, overwhelmed with gratitude. Emily, absorbing every detail, felt a sense of wonder she could not fully articulate. The dog had not only protected her, he had inspired her, showing her bravery, intelligence, and loyalty in a way that words could not capture. Neighbors began to approach, congratulating the officer and praising Max. Emily's mother smiled, grateful for the community support and the reassurance that such courage existed in their midst. Children nearby, inspired by Emily's experience, asked to meet Max, their eyes wide with curiosity and excitement. Emily, now standing beside the dog, looked up at him once more, whispering, "You saved my life." Max nuzzled her gently, a silent acknowledgement of her words, as if recognizing the bond that had formed in the morning's extraordinary events. As the sun climbed higher, Maplewood returned to its usual tranquility. The quiet street, once filled with tension and fear, now hummed with relief and admiration. Emily, holding her mother's hand, continued to pet Max, her young mind still processing the heroism she had witnessed. Sarah, observing the scene, felt a profound sense of gratitude and relief. The morning had started like any other, but had transformed into a moment of courage, protection, and inspiration that would be remembered by all. Emily's tiny heart brimmed with admiration and trust. She had seen bravery in action, witnessed the instincts of a trained dog, and experienced firsthand the bond between human and canine that could save lives. Max, calm and vigilant, had restored safety to their lives, proving that courage and loyalty come in many forms. As Emily hugged the dog gently, her mother whispered reassurances. The neighborhood exhaled, and the quiet of Maplewood returned, but the memory of the morning's heroism lingered, etched forever in Emily's mind. The morning sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over Maplewood's quiet street. Yet for Emily and her mother, the events of the past hour had transformed the world around them. The danger had passed, but the adrenaline still hummed faintly in their veins. Emily clutched her stuffed rabbit tightly, walking slowly beside her mother, her eyes never leaving Max. The police K-9, whose calm presence had turned what could have been a terrifying experience into a story of heroism. There was a glow of admiration in her gaze, a sense that she had encountered something extraordinary, a protector whose courage had kept her safe. Sarah noticed the profound shift in her daughter's demeanor. Emily had always been curious, fascinated by animals, and fearless in her small, exploratory way. But now, her fascination had transformed into respect and admiration. She looked up at Max, her tiny fingers brushing his powerful back, and whispered, "You're my hero." The dog leaned slightly into her touch, acknowledging the affection with a gentle nuzzle. Emily's eyes sparkled with awe, and Sarah realized that a unique bond had formed between child and dog, one born not of play, but of trust, courage, and shared experience in the face of danger. The officer crouched down to Emily's level, observing the growing connection. "He's very gentle when he knows someone is safe," he explained. "But he also takes his job very seriously. He'll do anything to protect people." Emily listened intently, absorbing every word. In her young mind, Max was no longer just a dog. He was a hero, a guardian, and a friend all at once. She stroked his fur again, giggling softly as he shifted slightly, enjoying the attention but staying alert, his instincts ready to respond if needed. The officer smiled, proud of his partner's professionalism and of Emily's bravery in witnessing the events without panic. Neighbors began to emerge from their homes, drawn by curiosity and a desire to witness the bond forming before them. Children peered from behind fences and bushes, whispering excitedly to one another about the hero dog who had saved a little girl from danger. Emily noticed their gazes and waved shyly. Still focused primarily on Max, Sarah guided her daughter gently. allowing her to interact with the dog under the officer's supervision. Max remained calm, letting Emily explore and pet him while maintaining the alertness that had ensured the family's safety just moments before. The officer explained a little about Max's training, tailored so that Emily could understand. He's trained to follow commands, protect people, and even anticipate danger before it happens, he said. Emily's eyes grew wide. So he knew the man was going to run? She asked, her voice full of wonder. The officer nodded. Yes, he can sense things we sometimes can't. That's what makes him special. Emily's gaze returned to Max, who now sat patiently, his strong body relaxed but alert. She gently stroked his head and whispered, I think you're magic. Max leaned into her touch, his calm presence reinforcing her admiration and the sense of safety she felt in his company. Sarah watched the scene, her heart swelling with gratitude and relief. The morning's events had tested her nerves and her instincts as a mother, yet she could see that Emily was learning something profound about courage, protection, and trust. You are very brave, Emily, she said softly. And Max, he's a hero. Remember that. Emily nodded solemnly, still focused on the dog. Her small hands rested on his back, feeling the warmth and strength that radiated from him. In that moment, the child learned the subtle lessons that only such a first-hand encounter could teach. Bravery takes many forms, and heroes can come in unexpected shapes and sizes. The connection between Emily and Max deepened as the minutes passed. She talked to him quietly, telling him about her toys, her favorite games, and even her favorite cartoons. Max listened patiently, occasionally nudging her hand with his nose, acknowledging her presence and the trust she placed in him. Sarah marveled at the interaction, realizing that Emily's experience had transformed her. She had witnessed courage in action, and she had seen how empathy and admiration could form a bond that transcended age, size, and species. The officer smiled, watching the young girl and his partner, knowing that these moments were the heart of why he did his job: protection, education, and inspiration. Emily's mother also noticed the small gestures of care from Max. The dog's ears twitched occasionally, scanning the surroundings. But his focus remained on Emily. It was as if he understood that she had played a crucial role in the morning's events, simply by being present, trusting him, and remaining calm. Sarah whispered to the officer, He's amazing. I don't think Emily will ever forget this. The officer nodded. She'll remember it for a lifetime, he said. And hopefully, she'll carry the lessons she's learning here about courage, trust, and empathy into everything she does. Meanwhile, Emily's fascination with Max inspired questions. How do you teach him to be so brave? She asked. The officer explained in simple terms. Lots of training, patience, and trust. We work together every day. He trusts me, and I trust him. That's why he can do what he does. Emily looked thoughtful, stroking Max's fur again. So you and Max are a team? She asked. Yes, the officer replied. We always look out for each other and for people who need help. Emily's eyes shone with understanding. She had witnessed the team in action, and now she could see the partnership that made Max's heroism possible. The scene began to draw more neighbors and children closer. They watched quietly as Emily knelt beside Max, sharing whispered stories and gentle pats. Each onlooker could sense the extraordinary bond forming between the small child and the large. Powerful K9, Max's demeanor encouraged trust and admiration, and Emily's innocence and curiosity invited gentle interaction. It was a rare moment where heroism met innocence, creating a scene that resonated deeply with everyone who witnessed it. Sarah realized that this bond was more than emotional. It was educational. Emily was learning about responsibility, respect, and bravery without even realizing it. As the morning continued, The officer took a few moments to show Emily some of Max's skills in a controlled, safe way. Max followed simple commands, demonstrating his obedience and discipline. Emily's eyes widened in wonder as the dog executed each movement flawlessly, from sitting and staying to responding instantly to verbal cues. She clapped her hands in excitement, her laughter mingling with the gentle morning breeze. Sarah smiled, noticing how the experience had transformed her daughter's curiosity into admiration and respect. Emily's hero worship of Max had deepened into understanding. The dog was not just strong and brave, but disciplined, intelligent, and loyal. By the time the neighbors began to drift back to their routines, Emily had formed a profound connection with Max. She walked beside him, holding her mother's hand, occasionally reaching out to pet him and whisper little stories about her day. Sarah observed the dynamic, realizing that Emily's fascination with animals had evolved into genuine understanding and respect for bravery and loyalty. The officer knelt once more, giving Emily a warm smile. "Max is happy to have a new friend," he said gently. Emily grinned and whispered, "I'm happy too." In that moment, Maplewood's quiet street had transformed. What had started as a normal morning of play had evolved into a life-altering encounter, a lesson in courage, heroism, and the extraordinary bond that can form between humans and animals. Emily had witnessed bravery, learned about trust and discipline, and created a connection with Max that would last a lifetime. Sarah hugged her daughter, grateful beyond words for the safety and inspiration the morning had brought. Max, calm and watchful, trotted beside them, a loyal companion and hero who had changed a little girl's world forever. By late morning, Maplewood had returned to a semblance of its usual tranquility, yet the events of the day had left an indelible mark on the neighborhood. The streets, normally quiet and predictable, now buzzed quietly with admiration and awe. Emily, still clutching her stuffed rabbit, walked alongside her mother and Max, the police canine who had become her hero. Her small hand occasionally reached out to stroke his fur, and each gentle nuzzle from the dog reinforced the extraordinary bond they had formed in the aftermath of danger. Sarah glanced down at her daughter, noticing the sparkle of excitement in her eyes, a combination of relief, awe, and burgeoning admiration for the courageous canine. Neighbors who had witnessed the morning's events began to gather in small groups, quietly discussing what had transpired. The story of the attempted threat and Max's swift, disciplined response spread quickly. Adults shook their heads in disbelief at the canine's instincts, while children watched wide-eyed, eager to hear about the hero dog that had saved Emily. Some whispered about the bravery of the officers, but most were captivated by Max's calm strength and intelligence. Emily, walking beside him, became a living testament to the bond between humans and their canine protectors, her innocence highlighting the profound impact of his actions. The officer, still with Emily and her mother, took the opportunity to explain Max's training and the role of Police Canine South to the gathering neighbors. "Max isn't just a dog," he said, his voice calm yet commanding. "He's trained to protect, to detect danger, and to act when people might be in harm's way. His instincts, combined with rigorous training, make him capable of incredible things." Today, he kept a little girl and her mother safe. Emily's eyes widened as she listened, stroking Max's fur. She didn't fully understand all the technical details, but she understood the essence. Max was brave, loyal, and extraordinary. Children from nearby houses edged closer, their curiosity overcoming their initial hesitation. One small boy whispered to his friend, "I want a dog like that someday." Emily giggled, her innocence contagious, and patted Max gently on the head. The dog, sensing the crowd's excitement but remaining calm, allowed the children to approach under the officer's watchful supervision. Each child's small hands brushed his fur. Each whispered, "Thank you and good dog," a testament to the awe Max had inspired. Emily's mother watched, feeling a profound sense of pride and gratitude, not only for Max, but for the way the community had come together, united by admiration and relief. The officer demonstrated a few more controlled exercises, showing the children how Max could respond to commands, detect hidden objects, and remain disciplined under pressure. Emily watched closely, her fascination growing with every movement. "He's amazing," she whispered, unable to contain her admiration. Sarah smiled, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Yes, he is," she replied. The officer nodded, recognizing the significance of these small but powerful lessons. For the children, and especially for Emily, today was not just about witnessing bravery. It was about learning trust, discipline, and respect for those who protect the community. Neighbors began sharing their experiences of the morning, recounting the suspense and relief they had felt as Max pursued the fleeing suspect. "I thought it might get dangerous," one man admitted. "But that dog, he was incredible." A woman nodded, adding, "And the officer kept everyone calm. It's amazing how they work together." Emily listened quietly, still petting Max, absorbing the praise and understanding that heroism came in many forms, some silent and disciplined, others visible and awe-inspiring. She felt proud to have been a small part of the story, even as a witness, and her admiration for Max deepened with each retelling. The morning continued, and Emily found herself at the center of attention among the neighborhood children. She spoke excitedly about Max, recounting in her simple 3-year-old way how he had kept her safe. "He's my hero," she exclaimed, her voice filled with genuine pride. The children listened, eyes wide, imagining themselves in her place, experiencing the bravery and quick thinking of a trained police dog. Emily's words, coupled with Max's calm presence, inspired awe and respect across the small crowd. She had become, in her own innocent way, an ambassador for courage and trust, showing how bravery could be recognized and celebrated by even the youngest among them. Sarah, noticing the excitement and energy, gently guided Emily to stand beside Max while the officer spoke to the crowd. "This is Max, a police canine," he said. "Today, he did what he's trained to do, protect the innocent and keep our community safe. He's a reminder that courage comes in many forms, and that heroes can be found in both humans and animals." Emily looked up at Max, her eyes shining, and whispered, "Thank you for saving me." Max responded with a soft nuzzle, as if acknowledging her words, reinforcing the bond that had been forged in the morning's extraordinary events. As the officer concluded his explanation, neighbors clapped quietly, some with tears in their eyes, others with wide smiles. Emily beamed, still holding Max's paw gently, feeling a sense of pride and security that only such a close connection could provide. Sarah felt a wave of gratitude, not just for Max and the officers, but for the way the community had come together to celebrate courage, recognize heroism, and provide reassurance after a potentially frightening encounter. It was a morning that had tested nerves, inspired admiration, and created lasting memories for all who had witnessed it. Emily's fascination with Max began to shift into a deeper understanding of loyalty and trust. She watched as he remained vigilant, his ears twitching occasionally to catch distant sounds, his eyes scanning for any hint of danger. "He's always watching," Emily whispered to her mother. Sarah smiled, impressed by her daughter's perceptiveness. "Yes," she said softly. "He's always ready to protect those who need him." Emily nodded, stroking Max's fur again. The dog's calm presence and reliable instincts had left an impression on her, teaching lessons about courage, responsibility, and trust that would endure far beyond that morning. As the crowd began to disperse, Emily and Sarah stayed a little longer. Sharing quiet moments with Max, she whispered stories about her toys, sang soft songs, and laughed gently as Max responded with affectionate nudges. The officer watched with a satisfied smile, recognizing that these moments of connection were as important as any heroic act. Emily had learned about bravery, loyalty, and trust firsthand, and the community had witnessed a demonstration of courage and protection that would ripple through Maplewood for weeks to come. Before leaving, Emily hugged Max tightly, her small arms wrapping around his powerful body. "I'll never forget you," she whispered. The dog leaned into her embrace, a gentle affirmation of the bond they shared. Sarah hugged her daughter, overwhelmed by the gratitude she felt for the K-9 and the officer. The morning had begun with an ordinary walk, but it had ended with lessons in courage, community, and the extraordinary ways in which heroes, both human and canine, protect and inspire those around them. Emily had seen heroism in action, and it had changed her forever. The afternoon sun cast a warm, golden glow across Maplewood, bathing the quiet suburban streets in soft light. For Emily and her mother, Sarah, the morning's extraordinary events had left a lasting impression. The danger had passed, but the excitement, awe, and lessons learned lingered. Emily clutched her stuffed rabbit tightly in one arm while reaching out to Max, her canine hero, with the other. The dog's powerful presence reassured her, his gentle nuzzles affirming the extraordinary bond that had formed between them. For a 3-year-old, the morning had been a whirlwind of fear, courage, and wonder, but above all, it had been unforgettable. Sarah guided Emily along the sidewalk, smiling at her daughter's quiet chatter about the morning's events. "Max is amazing," Emily said, her blue eyes wide and sparkling. "He saved me." Sarah squeezed her hand gently, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and gratitude. "Yes, he did," she replied. "And you were very brave too, Emily." The little girl's face brightened at the praise, and she turned to Max, whispering softly, "Thank you for keeping me safe." The dog responded with a gentle lick to her hand, a silent acknowledgement of her gratitude, strengthening the connection that had begun earlier in the day. Neighbors continued to talk quietly among themselves, reflecting on the morning's events. Parents spoke in hushed tones about the courage of the officers, the incredible instincts of Max, and the luck that no one had been harmed. Children lingered nearby, their eyes wide with fascination, recounting what they had seen and imagining themselves in Emily's place. The story of the day spread quickly through Maplewood, and Emily, small but proud, found herself the center of attention among the neighborhood children. They wanted to know what it had felt like to be saved by a real-life hero, and Emily eagerly recounted her experience, her tiny voice filled with excitement and awe. Sarah noticed how Emily's confidence had grown. The fear that had gripped her earlier in the morning had been replaced by admiration and trust. "Do you want to tell them how brave Max was?" she asked. Emily nodded vigorously. "He ran fast, he barked, and he never let the man get near me," she exclaimed. The children gasped, their imaginations ignited. Max sat patiently beside them, his ears twitching occasionally to catch any new sounds, but his body calm and relaxed, fully aware that the immediate danger had passed. His presence was a living lesson in loyalty, bravery, and the protective instincts that had made him a hero. The officer returned briefly, ensuring the neighborhood remained calm and that Max had completed his duties safely. He smiled at Emily, crouching to her level. "You were very brave today," he said gently. "And Max did exactly what he was trained to do. He's proud to have kept you safe." Emily grinned, her small hands patting Max's head. "I like him," she said simply, her voice full of admiration. The officer nodded. "He likes you too," he replied. "You formed a special bond." Sarah watched quietly, overwhelmed by gratitude. In that moment, she realized the morning's events had given Emily more than safety. They had given her a role model for courage and trust. The neighborhood children continued to gather around Emily and Max, their curiosity insatiable. They asked questions about the chase, about the dog's training, and about how he had known to act so quickly. Emily, in her own simple way, explained what she had seen. He followed the man. He made sure he couldn't hurt anyone, she said. The children listened intently, eyes wide with wonder. For them, the morning had become a story of heroism, bravery, and the extraordinary bond between humans and animals. A story that would likely be retold many times in Maplewood. Sarah took Emily's hand and guided her closer to Max. "Do you want to say goodbye for now?" she asked. Emily looked up at the dog, her expression hesitant. "I don't want to," she whispered. The officer knelt beside Max, speaking softly. "You don't have to," he said. "You can visit any time, and you'll see him again." Emily's face lit up. "Really?" she asked. The officer nodded. "Really. And every time you see him, remember what you learned today: courage, trust, and that heroes can come in all shapes and sizes." Emily nodded solemnly, absorbing the lesson even in her young 3-year-old way. As the afternoon progressed, Maplewood settled back into its usual rhythm, though the morning's events had left an indelible mark on the community. Neighbors exchanged smiles and nods, their conversations carrying undertones of admiration and relief. Children continued to talk excitedly among themselves, recounting Max's heroic actions and Emily's calm bravery. For Emily, the morning had transformed her understanding of the world. She had witnessed danger and courage, fear and protection, all within a few short hours. She had learned that even in moments of uncertainty, bravery and loyalty could shine through, embodied in a dog trained to protect and a community ready to support one another. Emily's mother, reflecting on the day, felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Max had not only kept her daughter safe, but had also taught her a lesson in trust, courage, and the power of partnership. Sarah looked down at Emily, who was now giggling softly as Max nudged her hand with his nose. "Thank you," she whispered to the dog, her voice full of warmth. Max responded with a gentle wag of his tail, a silent affirmation of the connection they shared. Sarah realized that this was more than just an afternoon of safety. It was a life lesson, a memory that would shape her daughter's understanding of heroism for years to come. As the day drew to a close, Emily and her mother finally prepared to return home. Emily waved one last time to Max, whispering, "I'll see you again soon." The dog gave a soft nuzzle in response, as if promising that he would always be there when needed. The officer smiled at them both. "Take care, Emily. Remember what you've learned today," he said. Emily nodded, her mind already filled with images of bravery, loyalty, and the courage of her canine hero. She held her mother's hand tightly, feeling safe, inspired, and full of admiration for the dog who had changed her life in a single morning. On their way home, Emily chatted excitedly about Max, recounting the chase, the protective instincts, and the bravery she had witnessed. Sarah listened quietly, amazed at her daughter's ability to articulate the awe and excitement she felt. The morning had started as any ordinary day, with Emily exploring her neighborhood and enjoying a typical day of play. But it had transformed into a story of heroism, courage, and the extraordinary bond between a child and a canine police dog, a story that Emily would remember forever. By evening, Maplewood returned to its peaceful routine, but the memory of Max's actions lingered in the hearts of those who had witnessed it. Emily fell asleep, clutching her stuffed rabbit, dreaming of her canine hero, the brave dog who had saved her and inspired her with his courage. Sarah watched her daughter sleep, feeling a deep sense of gratitude, pride, and hope. Today had been a day of fear turned into triumph, of danger transformed into safety, and of admiration blossoming into a lifelong bond. It was a day to remember, a story of bravery, loyalty, and inspiration that would live on in Emily's heart forever. And as Max rested quietly at the officer's side, alert yet calm, the bond they had all shared that morning remained a living testament to courage, trust, and the extraordinary ways heroes can touch our lives. Whether on two legs or four, Emily's world had grown just a little larger, filled with admiration, trust, and a lesson in heroism she would carry with her always.